My name is Stephen Hartman. I'm the Executive Director of Bridges, the humanities-driven sustainability science coalition in UNESCO's International Science Program Management of Social Transformations. I'm going to now introduce a case study from a project that Bridges has collaborated with other partners in Portugal and Iceland on focusing on wildfires and the role of arts, uh, municipalities, civil society, and academic partners working together in transdisciplinary ways to drive forward knowledge and understanding of how climate change impacts can be dealt with at the community level. And this was in the project called Folgo, which is financed by the EEA and Norway Grants Program, with a special collaboration between Portuguese institutions and organizations and Icelandic organizations. In this case, the University of Iceland and the Polytechnic Institute of Tamar, and specifically the chair in integrated cultural landscape management based in Mação and in Tamar. So I'm happy to turn over now the floor to my colleague Antonio Loro, the deputy director, or the deputy mayor rather of the village of Mação, to talk about a case of management of wildfires at the community level in Mação and a new approach that they've taken to dealing with the devastating effects over the last 50 years of wildfires in the central region of Portugal where Mação sits. And I can let Antonio explain the rest, so I'm happy to introduce Antonio Loro. I will do the voiceover because our subtitles are not working with the technology we're working. The solution to wildfires in vulnerable territories, not better firefighting methods, but better social ecological planning. Mação is a territory in central Portugal. It's been heavily affected by forest fires in recent decades. Until the middle of the 20th century, this territory was heavily populated by farmers in small villages scattered throughout the region. Not until the past 50 years did it experience the phenomenon of wildfires approaching the present scale and intensity. Significant socioeconomic changes in the region in recent decades have contributed to this situation. The disappearance of family farms and the departure of farming families to the big cities have driven new developments in land tenure and land management. These changes have created conditions ideal for the proliferation of large fires in the region. This phenomenon affects almost all of the center and north interior of the country, regions that have been increasingly affected by forest fires since 1975. Mação is located precisely in the center of the country. It is one of the territories in Portugal that has been most heavily affected by proliferation of wildfires due to ecological and climatic conditions as aggravated by climate change. There is a substantial probability that large forest fires will continue to occur in Mação in the future. In 2017, wildfires in Mação reached a peak, resulting in two major forest fires that affected an area of 28,000 hectares. In 2019, more than 5,000 hectares were burned in the territory, making Mação one of the most affected municipalities in the country. This development has much to do with the sharp reduction in the region's agricultural population and the disappearance of small farming and extensive grazing areas. These conditions favor the incidence of large forest fires of great intensity in the region. These wildfires are capable of spreading much more quickly than those experienced under the previous land tenure system before the mid-20th century, and they're more challenging to fight. This trend has been on the rise since the 1980s, bringing wildfires to territories and specific places that did not experience this problem in the earlier period under the long-established land tenure system. For a long time, the accepted wisdom was that the solution to this problem was to be found in maximizing investment in firefighting equipment, techniques, and capacities. When wildfires began to proliferate in the 1950s, municipalities that were affected the most focused on acquiring state-of-the-art firefighting technology, believing that this in itself would provide the solution. We now understand, however, that fighting forest fires does not in itself provide the solution. This change in received wisdom stems from our understanding that the very unsustainability of the landscape under the new land tenure system of the past 50 to 70 years has contributed materially to a worsening of the fires, their scope, frequency, and intensity. The landscape of Portugal's central region is not natural. It has resulted from the human cultivation and management of these territories over many millennia. As populations have declined with more and more farming families relocating to the cities, the network of tiny properties on which they traditionally farmed were no longer suited to the modern era. Abandonment became the only possible management strategy. The average property on the territory of Mação today is about half a hectare. So this small municipality of 40,000 hectares is divided into more than 80,000 properties. Such a divided territory no longer has the regular influence of smallhold farmers managing the landscape. Their descendants now reside in big cities as absentee landowners. Under these conditions, the present trend towards greater wildfires is to be expected. The little ball that we saw a moment ago corresponds to the landowners of the territory of a small village in the municipality of Mação. The other little ball that came right after that, we're a little out of sync with the slides, refers to the resident landowners. And the third ball that we saw represents the dispersion of landowners in the surrounding areas of this village. More than 75% of the landowners are already non-residents in this territory. In the past, their ancestors lived in the village and helped to create a balanced and sustainable territory in their daily lives and interactions. Grazing occupied large areas, as did olive groves, cereal crops, and horticulture, leaving only marginal and poorer agricultural land for forestry. As people moved away, the forest encroached on former pasturage and crop fields throughout the entire territory. The development led to large forested areas heavily laden with biomass, and these have become unsustainable in the current climate conditions. This contributed increasingly to large forest fires that quickly consumed all the available biomass. But as a living territory, Mação and its adjacent areas quickly recovered. We tried to augment the compartmentalized landscape by improving the roads and paths. We enhanced protection of the villages by cleaning the electricity lines, installing the water lines and fuel management strips along the roads. We have also made communities responsible for their self-protection, giving them equipment for this challenge. Still, all these adaptation measures were insufficient, and they remain so. In recent years, we have been making plans and plans and plans. However, plans in and of themselves do not solve the problem. In the meantime, development of integrated areas of landscape management has allowed us to operationalize changes in management practice and rebalance the landscape, making it more sustainable in environmental, economic, and social terms. This is the new approach we have adopted in the Mação territory. Knowing that the alternative, doing nothing but fighting the fires as they reappear with ever greater devastation, that this does nothing to halt the continuing cycle of wildfires. And so, with our landscape integration areas, we seek to implement a new landscape management tool. It is based on a business concept with company owners who now live in the city but continue to own rural land in a collectively organized way, using the land's added value and productive capacities to create wealth. To do this, we must create new land planning and management models and put the plans into practice, knowing that the risk of wildfire is imminent. We must do this on a municipal scale so that each constituent community is organized in its own company. At the same time, all these are collectively organized, working together to bring about change in a 40,000 hectare territory. This means making the community responsible by making the city-dwelling owners of rural land responsible for the creation and articulation of this new management tool. While respecting business criteria, this tool can put into practice balanced financial management capable of bringing about change in social terms. It can end property abandonment and create wealth in the territory, yielding sustainable and balanced environments.